This event has been organized by Mashaf. Thank you. Mashaf is the development aid organization of Israel, and it has been organized by GIZ, the organization implementing technical cooperation programs on behalf of the German government. The event has the topic Creating an Ecosystem for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, the experience from startup nations. Today we present experiences from different countries, Israel, Germany and East Africa, in order to identify ways to jointly foster the ecosystems by smart initiatives. We hope that the experiences presented today will stimulate discussions in other contexts and will lead to positive interventions in other countries as well. I'm very happy to welcome the representative of the government of Rwanda, the permanent secretary of the Ministry of ICT and Innovation, Madame Claudette Irere, who will soon address all of us. I'm also honored to welcome the personal representative of the German Chancellor on Africa and Commissioner for Africa in the Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, Mr. Günther Noke. Likewise, I'm honored to introduce to you His Excellency the Ambassador of Israel to Rwanda, Mr. Ron Adam. Both will add to the discussions today by presenting to us at the end the concluding remarks. I also would like to recognize the presence of Mrs. Renate Lehner, the Chargée d'Affaires ad interim of the German Embassy. Now I'm pleased to invite the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of ICT and Innovation to give us her welcome remarks. Dear Madame Claudette Irere, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Your Excellency, Ambassador Ron Adam, Ambassador of Israel to Rwanda, Mr. Günther Noke, personal representative of the German Chancellor for Africa, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, good morning once again. I'll start by conveying the Minister's apologies for not making it. As you can imagine, in an event like this, there are so many last-minute things that happen, and she couldn't make it. Nevertheless, she sends her regards and appreciates this cooperation between Israel, Germany, and Rwanda, talking about the investment ecosystem. We have the Chamber of ICT here, we have Kigali Innovation City here, and I'm sure in the room we have so many other people that are working closely with the tech ecosystem in ensuring that the investment opportunities are also as many as possible. This adds another layer, and we cannot thank you enough. Conversations like these should never stop. They should actually happen all the time. And I am hopeful that after this session, we will walk away with contacts, networks, and other opportunities that we didn't know when we walked in. I thank you once again very much, and I wish you fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your encouraging words, dear Claudette Irere, Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of ICT and Innovation. Now I have the pleasure to hand over to the moderator of today's session, Mr. Yariv Cohen. Mr. Cohen is the CEO of Ignite, a company investing in safe and clean energy, and he's also the organizer of the famous Face the Gorillas competition. Yariv, over to you. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. We will be talking about setting up of ecosystems for innovation, learning both from Germany, from Israel, from East Africa, but also we have Alex here to learn from Rwanda. So we believe in a joint conversation and collaboration. So I'd like to ask all the panelists to please join me. I'll make brief introductions on each one, and then they'll introduce themselves. Please come in. Thank you, everyone. I think we have enough brain power here to boost Africa. I'd like to basically, first of all, a couple of words we have here Shachar from Israel, working for Mashav on ecosystem development. Hendrik from Germany, GIZ, leading the operation here. Ian, running an accelerator in Nairobi and globally, all across Africa. Yutam, welcome from the south of Israel, from Beersheba, and Alex, who needs no introduction. I'd like you to start saying a couple of words on each. Shachar, the lady in the house, can you please start?
Hey, shalom. Hello, hi, lovely to be here. Thank you, Yariv, and thank you to all the colleagues. I'm Shachar from Israel. We'll be telling you a little bit about what is Mashav and what we do. Mashav is Israel's agency for international development cooperation. And I'll start by saying that what we do is people to people. And it's all started with people. It started actually with a woman. Golda Meir, if you've heard that name before. Golda Meir in the late 50s, she was the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Israel. And she started visiting Africa. And different countries in Africa were then, as you know, gaining their independence. Israel was a very young country. And she saw an opportunity for Israel and countries in Africa to share experience, to share know-how and knowledge and challenges, and to learn together how to strengthen our community development. And that's how it started. So she came back to Israel and she founded Mashav. Mashav started with a center that its main aim, started by a woman, was also to promote equal participation and inclusiveness. Back then, in 1961, a center in the north of Haifa was established for training, capacity building, for strengthening socioeconomic development. So until today, this is the work we do, and this is the vision we follow. Specifically in entrepreneurship and innovation, as you know, Israel has a lot of experience, but we also learn from other countries, and we do that through a lot of collaboration. So our work is done in over 157 countries, and until today with above 300,000 participants from around the globe, and it's all done in collaboration. So there are two levels for these partnerships. One level is like what we're going to talk about today, and this is international organizations and governments that we work together on joint needs and joint interests. The other level of collaboration is with our participants, with the trainees. We work with professionals, and what we do is facilitate the space for people to share, to discuss, and to experience hands-on how we can promote and develop new ideas, and always keep in mind the social impact and how we, in the position that we're at, we can actually give back and develop our communities and our organizations and our countries. So as I said, it's really about people to people, and I'd like to share with you a testimony from one of our participants from Rwanda, who was in Israel in 2017. And she can tell you a little bit about her experience and what she's doing today.
Can you please put the video?
Hello, my name is Ines Umhosa. I'm 21 years old. I participated in a Mashav course called From an Idea to a Business. Currently, I'm managing projects at Calab, an incubation center in Rwanda. That includes a project that is helping refugees to learn much more about coding and how it can be applied in real life. We do also host kids who have tremendous projects and help them to intensify them and make them into businesses. So I would say this wouldn't have happened if I didn't attend the course, because it helped me a lot to learn much more knowledge about business management and how to sustain businesses. Lastly, I would like to extend many thanks to the government of Rwanda, the government of Israel and Mashav to have provided me with this course. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Excellent video. Hendrik, tell us a bit about your activities, Made in Africa, and all the rest.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to this panel. I'm Hendrik Denker from the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, not from GIZ. GIZ is working for us, is the German implementation agency, but of course we're in very close collaboration with GIZ, and I also thank GIZ for having organized this. Yeah, talking about German-Israeli cooperation, maybe I start with that. Since 2013, BMZ and Mashav cooperate in the so-called German-Israeli Africa Initiative, and by now we have finished around 10 projects and are currently working in 5 projects in 5 countries in Africa, and building on the strengths of the two systems. We, with German Development Corporation, have a vast network with GIZ, KfW, our implementation agencies all over Africa, and offer that for this initiative, while the Israeli side, Mashav, comes in with very specific knowledge, the strengths of Israel. And so far, our cooperation is focused mainly on agriculture and irrigation, often technology in irrigation, fields that Israel is famous for all over the world. Now, last year when we were discussing in Jerusalem with the Mashav people, we were developing the idea we need to go forward and need to go into another field, and this other field is innovation, working with startups in Africa, and in particular in Rwanda, because Rwanda has been a priority for both Israel and Germany. And I'm happy that we have developed a program or start of a program that we can talk about today that involves Rwanda, that is focusing on ICT and startups. So in Germany we have set up the so-called Make IT program, Make IT Africa program, which focuses on strengthening ecosystems for ICT development and startups in Africa. And we have started to do that in Nigeria and Kenya at first, and we're expanding to other countries, Ghana, Tunisia, and now Rwanda is the 5th one on the list that we want to include in the program. And Make IT focuses on the whole ecosystem. We're cooperating with startups itself, we're cooperating with facilitators for startup development, hubs, accelerators, and we also focus on developing the right regulatory framework. So we are working with governments, and we are always working not only in country categories, but as it is a regional program, we want to make linkages between startups from all the countries involved, but also linkages to companies, often multinational companies, German, European companies, that are also looking into Africa. And I think that both sides, the startups from Africa and also the firms, the enterprises from Europe, the US and elsewhere, and Israel, can profit from these linkages and can enlarge their business and can contribute. This is, of course, for us as a development ministry, they can contribute to the development and the well-being of people in our African partner countries.
Thank you, Hendrik. This is so good to hear, because the development world is many times siloed. German does German, America does America, Israel does Israel. and it's refreshing to hear that there's collaboration. And I think the best person to talk about it is Alex. Alex, you've been to Israel, you've been to Germany, you've been to Japan, you've been everywhere, all of those. Tell us a bit about those partnerships.
Thank you. Let me see if I can. Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. So the question is, I've been to all these places, and what are these partnerships bringing about? So yes, I've been to Israel 2014, my first time, and I'm glad that the first time that I was there, I invited someone, or I invited a few companies, and one of those companies is sitting in this room, and it's Friends. So and they've been working in Rwanda since 2014. So, and I've been to Germany as well, and several other places. President usually says that our development is also a result of the partnerships that we build. And these partnerships, in the startup world, we've seen them also bearing fruit. Particularly, we started off with a partnership with JICA, with Japan International Cooperation Agency, in 2012 when we established K-Lab that has grown to catalyze the innovation ecosystem in Rwanda, and not just as one location, but it has inspired other several spaces that have opened up by private players, but as well as different governments. And today, or yesterday rather, I was excited to enter the DSSD Center, the Digital Transformation Center, which is set up by GIZ in partnership with the government of Rwanda. But also, the testimony we've just had from one of the K-Lab mentors is a result, again, from partnership with Mashav. I first got introduced to Mashav in 2014, and in 2016, they started sponsoring entrepreneurs to go and expose them to how entrepreneurship and startup business innovation is done in Israel. So I don't know, I can speak on and on the different partnerships and what they're bringing, but this panel is about creating innovation ecosystems and how partnerships how we can leverage partnerships. And I'm a testimony, I already have testimonies of what that is doing, and looking forward, I don't want to take a lot of time, but I look forward to sharing more as you ask me questions, but this is exciting already. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And I think when we were in Israel in 2014, we had a little conversation on the desert, on the Negev, and what we can learn from that. And I think 5 years down the line, it's now the Silicon Desert, or the Silicon that we call on. And Yotam, you had a major role in designing that. So if you can share with us a bit about your experience, and then we'll drill into how that's effective for here.
Good morning, and thank you everyone for having me. Israel is known as the startup nation, speaking around 6,000 startups, more venture capital investment per capita, more startup per capita, and speaking about innovation and startups all around. A few years ago, me, a student in Beersheba, the capital of the Negev Desert, I felt that it's not really connected to what I feel in the city. So everybody's speaking about Israel, startup scene, innovation, and actually Beersheba is a periphery city. We felt that we are not connected to this environment. There was a big boom around Beersheba development ecosystem in the past. Thank you. Thank you. There was a big boom about the development of Beersheba ecosystem in the past 6-7 years. connecting major part of the ecosystem from the government, the academia, the industry, the private sector, and also the community. In my organization in Tech7, we have developed a unique, I will tell you, this is a secret sauce of making ecosystem. You know what is it? We call it, we took the ecosystem out and then we receive an ecosystem. So what does it mean actually in the daily work? That we decided that we are not working for ourselves, but we are working in collaboration. And I'm very happy to hear this collaboration phrase here, because this is very important if you want to do big things. Because alone the government in Israel will not make it, it won't be possible to create a desert city into an ecosystem. Probably not my organization, not the private sector, not the multinational, but together, each one doing his own, but at the end we have our vision, and the vision is much more bigger than each one of the ingredients in the ecosystem. We create a booming ecosystem of startups and innovation in the desert capital of Israel, the Beersheba. I will probably share more about insight, about our challenges, about how we're facing still challenges in creating this ecosystem. It's not, this is not a project that you have a starting and ending point. This is an ongoing development project. And we are very happy to hear and learn from other countries and other ecosystems around the world. And thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tom. That's experience from Israel. Now, Ian, you've been doing it for a while. 200 companies, 400 entrepreneurs. You're Danish, but African. Been doing it for, I think, close to 20 years. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. Yes, my name is Ian. It's a great pleasure to be here, and really exciting also with a panel like this. It's quite a tall order to kind of be the last one to present. Yeah, so I'm a partner and executive director of Growth Africa. We founded in 2002 in Kenya. I don't look very African, so I'm always asked that question of when I came in and when I'm leaving. But I've been around for about 14 years, so this is very much home. But it also means that I think that sense of bringing something from different parts and trying to hopefully bring the best pieces and be able to combine them. As Growth Africa, we had, I think, listening to the other speakers, we had 5 to 7 years where we did B2B matchmaking between Kenyan businesses and business from Northern Europe. I think it taught us a lot about what is the texture, what are the pieces, what is the secret sauce to try and bring partners together. What are the pieces on a cultural level, but also in terms of building the trust that I think we'll get back and touching on in terms of building ecosystems and building partnerships, and how much that's key to fostering the kind of real growth that we want to see. So rightly, since 2012, Growth Africa have been working on accelerating, we call them ventures, because they are typically with some level of traction, some level of revenue already, so a little bit above startups. Started off doing that in Kenya, and then we had to take our own medicine in terms of growing. So about 3, 4 years ago, we then started expanding geographically and went into Uganda, Ethiopia, Zambia, now also Malawi. And part of what the vision that we see going forward is also to be able to help businesses locally expand beyond the domestic market. So also help them on that growth journey first of scaling them domestically, and help them perhaps with a presence in other markets to actually go into these other countries as well, and really try and make businesses that are serving local communities, but at the same time doing that on a larger scale. Our focus has been on trying to create impactful businesses, so not only in IT or tech, but across, and typically where you can say tech is an enabler in these businesses, or we can enable them to scale and grow. And I'd also say the ability to attract and bring in international partners is definitely a key element in also trying to create a mindset among entrepreneurs that is looking beyond the perhaps immediate local market or regional market, but have people who actually think bigger than that, which is definitely key ingredients in how we will have to grow the ecosystem going forward. So I'm also looking forward to seeing how this event and the network here can enable us to find new partners and perhaps grow and scale both Growth Africa, but also the offering and the help that we can provide entrepreneurs across Africa.
Thank you. Alex, I think that the theme is partnership, and Rwanda has been extremely effective in bringing partnerships way above, punching way above its weight, from space with Japan to manufacturing with Germany to strategic initiatives. Share a bit the learnings that you have from that on bringing those partnerships in from a country-centric approach as part of a vision, and then how can this be applicable here?
Thank you. How do we bring in partnerships? I think it's true. It's a couple of things, but primarily what has always been is creating an environment. The very fact that Rwanda is ranking among the best place to do business by the World Bank also gives some confidence to investors, but also other partners. Sometimes we speak of investors as only those people that are bringing in the cash, but there are other types of investors that are bringing in knowledge, that are bringing in skill sets, that are bringing in different angles of building a nation, especially what Rwanda needs most. And how this has developed over time is been conversations, places like these, places where people get to meet, people get to talk to each other and get to share what they're doing, and one picks from the other, one learns from the other, and then say, okay, let's follow it up with ABCD, with real actionable points. Recently, I saw a message that was a video clip that was going on around WhatsApp from a very high official in the UN who said that I took this particular investor to this country and met so many people, and then I took them to Rwanda, and they met people as well, but within a couple of months, there was action in Rwanda, and in his very own country, he was criticizing his own government. There wasn't action. So I guess these stems from the urgency, that spirit, or that I could say character or whatever that has been set by the leadership in Rwanda, that when we say we want to do something, we really follow it up and get some things done. And that's, I guess, the ingredient is people want to get to see the things are done, but also they want confidence, and they want security, they want accountability. And yes, we dream big. Those are the three things that are that have been reiterated over time. We choose to stay together, we choose to be accountable, and we choose to think big and to dream big. And that's the underlying factor. And I guess that is beginning to get into a national philosophy of a sort, that everybody gets onto that kind of pace, so to speak.
Thank you, Alex. And you spoke about an important point about investment of knowledge. And I know Mash'av is maybe not the biggest development organization from a capital-wise, and chose a very unique road of knowledge sharing. Can you talk a bit about the impact of that, and how is it working?
Yeah, so definitely our aim is to share knowledge, and not to teach, but to bring people together who can share their challenges and experiences, and then work together towards their interest and their goal. So we've seen participants coming with a PhD in business, but only when you come and sit and work in group and you're put into a task. And it could be a business lab, it could be how to do support systems for entrepreneurs, it could be even in agribusiness. Whatever interest you are coming to develop, we're putting people into work, and we work together either in regional groups or international groups, And the goal is to leave a training activity or a conference with something in your hand, with something practical that you can go back home and implement and work on. So really the main, I would say, the main thing is to help coming with an idea and changing it into practice. So we have trainings that are from an idea to a business, just like the one Ines spoke about. But in any field, be it in community development and combating violence, in agricultural development, the aim is to be practical. So we say not just to talk, but to do. Take the risk. This is something that the entrepreneurial spirit is a lot about, taking risks and doing, and just launching your idea. The network, and I think Alex spoke about this, and this is really key, and this is something that when we say to share knowledge is to also to share about yourself, about your experience, and to make new friends. So even in a conference like this of a few days, but also in longer term activities where participants stay for a few weeks, we create a network that is so valuable that people who are working together, you know, you put your suit away and you go down to work, you have breakfast together, but you also represent your country. So you feel like you're in the United Nations, but really it's more like what I like to call the kibbutz approach. If you heard about the kibbutz, it's a shared space, it's a shared economy where everyone live together, eat together, and work towards a common goal. And this is really what happens. So this is what we try to bring. And in terms of direct impact, we have participants sharing their stories and how they implement their projects in each country. And this is connected very much to our collaboration with international organizations, because we use these partnerships to follow up. Follow up, I'm sure you know, is really key on knowledge transfer. So we don't want to just share something and disappear. This is why our embassies, and now we're happy to have a new Israeli embassy in Rwanda. This is really key to whatever Mashav or an international organization would do, to have on-the-spot follow-up and support. And the same goes for our collaboration with international organizations. So with GIZ having a country office in Rwanda, we know that our participants coming in June to Israel for a course, they'll come back here and they'll have still contacts, and the network will go on. So it's not only building a business plan or creating a model for maybe a new ecosystem for the country, a support system. These are the kind of things that participants are working on. When they come back here, for instance, since we're now here, but it could be anywhere, they'll have the local support. And this is a way for us to keep in contact and continue and support the trainees.
So you help them build the concept, you give them the motivation, you give them a bit of the go get it done, but then they actually have to get it done. And for that you need discipline and precision, which are usually linked to Germany rather than to Israel. And this is why this is very interesting to hear about the partnership between the two. Because in order to make it work, first of all, you had to take out the ego out of the equation. Very difficult to do. And then also marry those two cultures of the two countries, which are very different. And both are needed to succeed as a startup, not talking about a startup in Africa. So Hendrik, a bit about the process of getting this collaboration done, and where do you think you're going to take it?
Well, it's like always with new endeavors that you, at the beginning, can't oversee where it takes you and where you will end up. And I think this is also true for our cooperation with Mashav. On this one, we will start with a course that Shahar was mentioning this summer in Haifa in Israel, where 10 participants of the Make IT programs and and 5 of them from Rwanda will be sent to. And I'm sure that they will come back with a lot of additional experience that they can make use of. As I said, this time the cooperation will focus on hub managers the facilitators in the African markets, K-Labs is an example in Kigali, and organizations like that, they will go to Israel. At a later stage, there are probably also other ways of exchange of maybe startups itself, maybe more government people that can be sent and gain experience and see how an ecosystem can be managed and what can be learned for your own country. And I think it is very important to note that we are not talking about copy and paste. The cultural question has been mentioned. That is one thing, and I think it's very central. There is no blueprint for solutions that have worked in another country, be it Europe, be it Israel, and that there's a guarantee that it can work in Rwanda, Nigeria, or anywhere else in the world. I think it is always about the people within the ecosystem to make the choices and to define the strategy and to make it work, rather than just going somewhere with the expectation I just have to watch closely and just do it the same way and everything will be fine. It's not working like that. It is hard work, as you said, and we can probably contribute a few ideas, an impetus probably, but the impact is the result of the work being done here.
Thank you, Hendrik. And I love the modesty, and this is what I'm getting out of the panel. So we're talking about governments, and we're talking about big things, but at the end, it's on the ground. So Ian, do those things really matter when you see those companies? Are we making an impact when we're doing those programs? Are the people coming out better? What's your sense?
I definitely think we're making a difference, and otherwise I wouldn't be here. But I think also it does go to perhaps a little bit perhaps a little bit different direction what Alex was saying. I think there's a high degree of patience that needs to come with this, and I think it is, if we're looking at building an ecosystem, that will take time. It involves a lot of stakeholders, a lot of people. So I think this is not something you're in for the short game. It is something where there's a long pull, and I think that's also why we need the commitment of partners of sorts to know that this is a long game where we're looking at 10-year or more horizon. And we're still on a learning curve. I think anyone working with entrepreneurs would honestly have to say they don't have the recipe. It's work in progress. So we can have a secret sauce, and that may be one ingredient, but I don't think that's the final recipe. So I think that's where we're at.
So when you look around here, we're doing so many activities. Is it continue those, or just give me the money, we'll do it ourselves, we'll support the companies?
No, I think what's perhaps key is finding a right mix between both supporting the actual ventures and the institutions that are delivering the support to the ventures. I think traditionally perhaps been a little bit of an overemphasis on helping the ventures without building the necessary capacity, which I think is what is being addressed now, with the very institutions, the very people that are helping the ventures. And also there perhaps been, in certain ecosystems, a little bit of sense of we need more, when I think what we're now moving towards is we need better. So the investment shouldn't be in having more enablers or more supporters, but strengthening the capacity and the capabilities of the ones that we have. I think that really is the agenda in most, or should be the agenda in most ecosystems. And perhaps also making sure, and I think that speaks to what Henrik's saying as well, ensure that we have the right partners on the ground that can contextualize and anchor the offering, rather than perhaps encourage or have too many what I call parachuting organizations coming in that will set up because funding was available, but when funding is over, there'll be a way again. And they're not going to be here anchoring what they have to offer. And that's really what I think at the core of it, that we need to drive. What is it that can sustain this? Who are the players that will be there tomorrow as well, and march forward with this?
Thank you. You mentioned recipe. It looks like at least for a small part, somewhere in the desert, you did find the recipe. A bit more about that, and how can we apply it here?
So as you said, I'm not sure there is a recipe that you can take and I would say copy paste, even not to other part in Israel. What has been happening in Beersheba? I will definitely say that you have to have all the counterparts working together, because there are many countries, regions, cities in the world who thinks, also in Israel, by the way, who thinks that only the government can do the change, and only by tax incentive, or only by bringing Google or other multinational big companies that will make the change. And there are other parts who thinks that by private sector, like I would say people like me, community building and creating startups, that will make the change. And I will say the secret sauce, it's not that easy to do. It's sometimes very, very difficult, but you have to create this system where the government, the institutions, the academia understand the value of the people on the ground, the community, the startups, the entrepreneurs, and giving them the tools that they might won't have as private sector. And because many times I've seen that government or academia thinks they know to build stuff that the community already doing, but we lack of resources. And sometimes the resources don't match the right people. So I will say, as my cup of tea is that connecting the resources that we have in the government institution to the people on the ground, the private sector, the people that's really, really enthusiastic about changing, about making a change in their own community, connecting them to the resources and the power of government institution, and making this without no ego and understanding that this path will create better place for all of us. I will say this will be probably the secret sauce. I would like just to add an example of what you spoke, Shachar. Beersheba as a periphery city and as a strong university city, we always have like strong people who coming to the periphery. So most of the program till recently was like the strong student helping the periphery and neighborhood kids, teaching them stuff. We have decided to change this method and creating a program called Innovation. We took like acceleration program where we took 2 students and 2 teenagers, and they work together on building their own startup. So understanding that the teenager can teach the students and the students can teach the teenager, both of them can bring something to this equation. This is, I think, will also be the secret sauce that everybody can contribute to the community, everybody can share their own knowledge, and everybody is relevant. If you understand this, but really understanding both of it, I believe this will be a great start for creating your own ecosystem.
Thank you. And I think here we're in the smart, we're in the digital. And Hendrik, the timelines are really quick. This is evolving globally at a ridiculously fast pace. How do you keep track? What's next? What are the revolutions that you're planning to take that to the next level? Because whatever did 5 years ago for Beersheba is no longer relevant. Where's your vision? Where is this going with your activities?
Well, revolutions are probably never planned, and I'm pretty sure they are never planned by government, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask first. Secondly, I think you're absolutely right when we talk about speed of changes in the field of ICT innovation. It is really fast, and many things that we discuss about today, artificial intelligence, for instance, or other things, have been illusionary part of books of science fiction only 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I can't tell you what we'll be talking about in 5 or 10 years. Definitely not. The challenge is, and I think this is also what we want to incorporate in our program, is we need to be open for the many ideas that are floating around and that can probably be caught and then used for your own benefit. And I think it's much about this, let's say, perspective that is important and that we want to bring forward in our programs. And the challenge basically is the same in Israel, here in Rwanda, and in Germany. If you're not open to the new ideas, you will probably not be in the game anymore in a couple of years. So you better watch out and use the opportunities.
Thank you. And with those cautionary but also opportunistic work, I'd like to open the floor to the audience for questions from the panel. Do we have any questions? 1 second, I'll bring a microphone.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Enos, and I'm from Kenya, and I've interacted with some of you, but I want to raise a question that probably would help shape this conversation into something that we can implement here in Rwanda. I know the biggest challenge is poverty. Now, poverty works against a mindset that helps growth in the startup. And most of the startups that come up, because I've seen it in Kenya because I've been in the startup ecosystem for about 12 years. Poverty has to do with a lot of grabbing, a lot of working alone, a lot of ego, and a lot of short-sightedness, and the vision is not so big. So I don't know if you have experienced that, and because I don't know if the situation is different here in Rwanda, but I don't know, because I know poverty does that, and I don't know how you're going to work around it in order to accelerate this ecosystem, because of course in Kenya we do have a quite I won't say a very big ecosystem, but the challenges are because a lot of people work individually, a lot of startups have problems with ownership, and a lot of startups have a big problem about they're not vision driven, but they're what I call livelihood driven, because they're just looking out for their livelihood. So growth becomes a big problem. I would really want us to share more about that. Thank you.
Alex, you want to start with that one?
Why me?
Because you've done coding lessons in poor areas and many more things.
It's okay. It was so yes, livelihood driven versus vision driven, and I like the fact that you say the context. So the difference, there's not much difference in Rwanda either. Someone said, I think I picked it up from the folk at Andela, they say that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And what we have been seeing here as well, the livelihood comes in. Someone can't pay their bills. We all know that in Africa, it takes a whole village to raise a child. And after they've raised you, you're also responsible for the family. So if you graduate, entrepreneurship, venturing into entrepreneurship and taking risks is really not the first lane, the first option that your family members are expecting you to take, because there's probably a lineup of other family members that need the help, the support and the help. So it's real. We've experienced it in our ecosystem. We've seen some of the challenges, and we said, how do we plug this? That's why when we were designing the program 250 Startups, which is a multi-partner incubation setup to help startups get to a level where they are fundable, investable. And what we have done, we've designed it in such a way that we kind of de-risk or soften the landing by providing the most basic things. So transport is one of these factors. You can't get transport to come to the center, to the training center. Okay, when you come there, you can't just spend the whole day on an empty stomach and you expect people to innovate. So you need to provide food. You need to give them lunch. You need to feed them. We all know the examples. We like to talk about Google and Facebook and all these places. But when you look at it, they provide, there's free food all over for their developers to be able to keep going. So these are practical examples. When we talked with our partner, JICA, and we're designing the program, we said we need to have a budget for these 3-4 things, which in essence we're catering for the to minimize the pain. This is the same model we are also taking with the program we're running with GIZ, which is WeCode, helping young girls closing the digital gender divide. 6 months program, software development program. We took in 100 girls. On Friday, 28 will be graduating with top-notch software development skills, and we provide these cushion to help them really. And for me, that's the beginning. What's the basic? Look at Maslow. Look at those and see how do we start with that. And sometimes we want to hand money. Yes, the awards, the competitions, and someone has won $20,000 competition. And tomorrow, or 2 weeks later, or a month later, you'll find them with nothing. Why? Because, again, they suddenly became rich and they had to go somewhere, spend, buy a car, buy this, and spend it on other factors. So this is where, these are the tweaks or the adjustments we're making in our system to make or to give a longer life shelf, so to speak, for the players or the startups. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if that answers you, Yari.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time for questions. Paula, thank you for Minister. Thank you for joining us in the conversation. Would you like to present?
Yeah, thank you very much, Yarif. Thank you very much, the panelists. Time is limited, but many arms which I saw show that this is a very interesting conversation. We couldn't, of course, exhaust the topic here. I hope that you will use the coming days to continue this conversation. And also, Mashaf is here on the ground in Rwanda, German Corporation, GIZ, we are here. We are also ready very much in the coming days and months and years to continue this conversation and work on these issues. Now I have the great honor to welcome Honorable Minister of ICT and Innovation, Paula Ingabire. She will officially close this function, and before, I'm very happy that we have 2 contributions concluding remarks. First, I would like to invite His Excellency, the Israeli Ambassador to Rwanda, Mr. Ron Adam.
Thank you, Bodo. Thank you for coming, and thank you for the panelists from Mashav, from Beersheba, from Germany, and from here, from Rwanda. We learned, I will be very short because we don't have much time, but we learned that we have to think big, to take the risk. We have to to have a vision, and to have all stakeholders around one table or in one room, including government, private sector, academia, and we have the recipe. So the rest is for us to implement. And I'm here to do the follow-up, as one said. So thank you very much. Thank you, Bodo.
Thank Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And now I have the great pleasure to invite the personal representative of the German Chancellor, Mr. Günther Noke, at the same time Commissioner for Africa in the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, to give us his concluding remarks. Welcome, Mr. Noke.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Israel to the Republic of Rwanda, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Thank you for holding this insightful discussion today and giving me the opportunity to sum up the talk. I'll try my best. Let me do that by pointing to specific learnings, mostly with regard to innovation, what was the main issue for me. Innovation is one thing which is increasing by sharing. First, the lady or Shasha from Mashav of Israel, you started with a remark, it's a people-to-people approach. Henrik said, we are working together, and it was about the cooperation between the government of the Federal Republic of Germany and the State of Israel with partners in Africa, especially with governments in Africa. And that is the first conclusion I would tell you. For me, it's the homework on the side of the politicians, the administrative staff, and those who are organizing processes. We have to do our own homework. Innovation is not only on the side of the IT community and the bits and bytes, it's also in the processes, designing political processes, social participation, and all this what is a democratic, open state is dealing with for the well-being of their citizens. And we have to do a lot to leverage the people-to-people approach with those kind of new innovations on the political side, that states will work together not to become more powerful, but give the power to the people on the ground, so that innovative and creative people can push forward development. That's the first thing. The second, strategic international partnership are needed to boost innovative capacity and to enter new markets. It's about business, it's about jobs. The digital transformation is a global project. Digital innovation or innovations are happening everywhere in the world, increasingly in countries of the global south. The panel discussion has shown that the partners of German development cooperation are becoming a driving force for boosting innovative capacity for emerging markets. And third, the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development builds bridges for increased strategic cooperation globally. This kind of bridges maybe should be developed in the sense what I mentioned in the beginning, more innovative, more thinking out of the box, and not only doing the business as it's known. I see my role and the role of the BMZ, my ministry, to build bridges to future digital markets in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Therefore, the ministry has introduced different initiatives to bring together governments, industries, and customers in different parts of the world, and in particular in Africa. Strategic international partnerships are key for acting in the digital world. One of the initiatives already mentioned is Make IT in Africa. It was already mentioned several times. I would like to point out once more three key aspects of this initiative, but it's not only right, I think, for this initiative. Inspiring the change makers for digital transformation in Africa. Learning from others matters a lot in highly dynamic digital world. We support peer learning of startups, innovation hubs, and public entities for sharing good practices and intensifying international collaboration. The partners of German Development Cooperation have a big interest in working together with you. This will help to know new markets and to get the right contacts. Henrik mentioned that together with Mashaf, we will support 25 innovation hub managers from Africa to learn from their peer experiences in Israel with startup accelerators in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. The second for this issue, connecting the dots. The quality of an ecosystem is determined by the connection between the stakeholders, the people, but also such as startups, investors, hubs, academia, international businesses, supporters, and so on. In Kenya and Nigeria, we have seen that a critical mass of these connections help to ignite a vibrant innovation ecosystem. Together with the government of Rwanda, we want to help strengthening this spirit in Rwanda too. And therefore, I'm happy to launch Make IT in Rwanda as part of BMZ's ongoing collaboration for digital solutions for sustainable development. A Make IT desk has to go to point for stakeholders in the ecosystem will be established soon. Developing new solutions for sustainable development hand in hand with investors, business partners and local entrepreneurs, and this digital innovation made in Africa can achieve high international visibility and relevance. With Make IT, we strengthen the pipeline of innovations. We focus on innovations with a high quality and potential for supporting the sustainable development goals. That's a very important issue for our ministry and the German government. At present, more than 150 carefully selected innovations are identified. Many of them already attract international recognition and high investments. And we should also mention that there already are several strong actors in Africa already working on this theme. One is the Smart Africa initiative, which has organized the Transform Africa Summit here. I'm happy that we will sign a joint declaration of intent in order to deepen cooperation between BMZ and the Smart Africa Secretariat here in Kigali. I hope that with joint forces we can further contribute to this pipeline of innovations. Yaref Cohen asks for the revolutionary idea. That was also something I have to step up. I have something in mind. Henrik said it's not the business of politicians or those working for a government, but I think it's a secret, and sometimes we have to speak about with the people on the ground and should present that on conferences a little bit later. But I think the digital world is full of great ideas which could really change the development cooperation and maybe changing financial systems, changing social behavior and working together and living together. And so we are in a very, very interesting time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Günter Noke, for your encouraging remarks. Please allow me to say thank you to all of you, to the panelists, to the moderator, to the speakers, to all those who helped happen this event. on behalf of Mashaf and behalf of German Development Cooperation GIZ. And now I have the great honor to hand over to Honorable Minister Paula Ingambire, Minister of ICT and Innovation, to officially close this function.
Thank you. A very good morning to all. I think I must have seen some of you earlier, but I'd hoped to be here at the beginning of this session, but we have a lot that is conflicting, but I'm glad that I actually made it in time for the closing, and so I hope I get the most out of it. I know most of the discussions here really are around how we can share experiences from the different innovation ecosystems, and very particularly for Israel and Germany, I think there's a lot that we can learn from them. And as much as there's no one size fits all in terms of replicating what has already been done, but I think there are certain things we can learn from how you've built and nurtured your innovation ecosystems and be able to do some of that as we build our very own for Rwanda, but also for Africa in general. And like many of the, the panelists said and what the team was talking about earlier, while talent is equally distributed and opportunity is not, I think the whole essence of this discussion is how do we as stakeholders, both from the public sector, the private sector, work together to create those platforms that offer the opportunities that we need for our innovators. And very importantly, I think what's also important to think when we start to talk about innovation ecosystems is really the critical need to build the right type of talent that is really going to steer and grow these innovation ecosystems. And also to think about some of the support structures in terms of financing, in terms of business support that are really required to scale from ideas to prototyping to commercialization and beyond. So thank you very much to the panelists from Israel and from Germany for really being here today and sharing your experiences, but also beyond just sharing experiences, for your keen commitment to support Rwanda in this journey that we've embarked on. A very special thanks to Ambassador Ron, to Gunther, the representative of the German Chancellor, to the GIZ country director. They have been very instrumental in shaping and designing the vision that we are creating for Rwanda and for Africa to grow our innovation ecosystems. I thank you very much for the support that you've shown us over the years. I thank you that you're walking the talk with us and that you're going to continue to be great partners. That said, I don't want to stay very long. I know most of you need to be in the room as we officially kick off the Transform Africa Summit. I wish you very fruitful deliberations as you interact, as you connect, as you innovate. I wish you the very best. Thank you very much.